And 1024, the fifth phrase there, page 117, Yalad, produced, number 5. In the same way, Shelach was indoctrinated by his father. He produced the silhouette and inclinations of his own son as stressed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So this is going to be lightly connected to what's come from before, but mostly sweep us forward into what's going to go on afterwards. So again, we're seeing the idea of the ideals and reflectiveness of the father being passed on very well to the son, and the son is then going to again do the same thing to et Aver, to his son, number 6. Shelach discovered that his son was capable of grasping his father's teachings. However, with Aver, he could develop a progression of his previous thoughts. So we see that both there is good transmission, but also the ability to move forward with those ideas and make something happen in the world with them. And that's why we get this stabilizing influence with Aver, the Sof Pasuk, something that is going to make the world a different place. And we have 2 notes. Aver, although all sons of Noach were essentially wanderers, Avel went to dwell among the southern Semites, Avar, on the lower part of the Euphrates. So he is going to cross over to somewhere different, and we have a different interpretation of Aver, which is a side, Avar, to go over to a different side, was the direction of his philosophical orientation, i.e. to be neutral with regard to any conflicting problems rather than involve himself in any direction. So he was, so I think what we're trying to say here is that every Hebrew word has the ability to be davar v'hipucho. It can be the thing and the exact opposite. So when we say his name means a side, he was able to make himself somebody who was without a side, i.e. somebody who was able to consider the position of the other from a neutral stance so that he could take any side. Instead of violence and antagonism, he advised tolerance and cooperation, non-interference, synergism, and commensalism. So he is not someone who took a side, he is somebody who could take any side. And we're trying to take that from the meaning of his name. And we have discussed before that biblical names aren't always perhaps the thing that the person was called, but rather a reflection of a characteristic or a feature of that person's personality or that person's influence or that person's significance. So even though we say Aver, the one with the side, he is the one who could take anybody's side, and he might not even have been called that when he was alive, but that's what he was important for and remembered for. So what we're going to see when we read through the Pasuk out loud is the names Arpachshad and Shelach are going to stand out by themselves. Arpachshad has this influence from Shem, and it's going to be inculcated into him. And Shelach is going to have this influence backwards looking at Arpachshad, and it's going to be ingrained into Aver. V'Arpachshad Yalad et Shalach, V'Shelach Yalad et Aver. I guess the other thing to have note is the difference between the first time we read Shelach's name and the second time we read Shelach's name, that there is a significant pause in between the two. We'll go on, because page 117 at the very bottom, Yud Kaf Hey, 1025, Ula Aver, and for Aver, this is a merchas, it's lightly connected to what's come from before, but mostly moving us forward into what's going to go on. So we're going to define the next generation. Ula Aver, number 1. The true personality of Shem was temporarily closed. And for Aver, they're open to chance to the dormant genetic characteristics as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So even though we are connected to what's come from before, we're mostly going to push something forward from here on. And again, the focus on genetics here is a little bit different from what he said in the previous sentences, that we were going to say influence on the world. And I don't think the meaning was a genetic influence. I thought it was more of one of moral suasion. We are talking about progeny here, so certainly the inference to genetics does fit what the sentences are talking about, but I think it was a little bit of a shift in a pivot in terms of what we're talking about. Nonetheless, we will take it for what it is. Yulad Tipcha. So this is going to close the phrase and pause slightly afterwards. Was born, number 2. An addition was born to him to continue to develop the character of the protoplast, as shown by the closing shape of the directional reading. So when we first talked about Shem, Pasuk 10:21, we noticed that we said he's Avi Kol B'nai Ever. We talked about Shem, and then all of a sudden we start talking about his grandson. Why did we talk about his grandson? Because he's going to be a moral influence, but the moral influence, or the influence on the world at least, isn't going to really start to express itself until we get to the generation of Aver. So we're going to see that from Aver we start talking about being able to influence the rest of the world. Shnei, a couple of, this is a munach, so this is separated out from what's come from before, so we've got the tipcha with the pause, and then the munach with that wall that separates it out from what's come from before, but mostly moving forward into what's going to go on. Aver produced a couple of male children by whom were split the latent elements of their heredity, and the potentials of their father became differentiated and crystallized, as stressed by the shape of the reading mark. So this is going to tell us that there's going to be a sharp division between these two children. They're going to have different influences or different characteristics. Banim, sons, again with the stabilizing etnachta to it. Each of these sons had his own established character and way of living, which differed from the other one, as denoted by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So both of them found a stable way of living, but it is different from the others. Shnei banim, with a note, a couple of sons. By this accent, the text indicates that Aver may have been a forerunner of Avraham and Yitzchak, who also had two sons of opposite characters. And again, other than the fact, so we make the inference that the two sons are different, both by the separation between Yulad and Shnei, the Tikha and the Munach, and also by this being another example. So Adam had two sons and then had a third son, but this is somebody who has only two sons, and we're saying it's a paradigm for having two sons of different character, which we see later on with both Avraham and Yitzchak. Shem, name, with a munach. So this is, again, separated out from what's come from before and going to push us forward into what's going to go on afterwards. The individual name of each was significant for the curriculum of their life, as suggested by the shape of the reading mark. So they are going to have distinctiveness about them, and it's going to lead into the characteristics that are going to be in and of themselves. Ha'echad, Gershayim. Gershayim is a note that has a slight pause afterwards, makes the word more important, but also has a doubleness to it and has an element of looking backwards from it. We'll come to the note in just a second. Number 6, the characteristic of the one was expressed by his name, reflecting events which occurred during his lifetime, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the name of the one looks back at what happened during his life, and that was the main focus of himself. So it focuses us, and points us backwards, i.e. to his lifetime. So we're going to go back to the note. This was on Shem, name. This indicates that names are not accidental, but have specific meaning, as was seen before in the Bible and will be proved later. So the fact that the word Shem, name, is separated out and leads to something that is going to go on, i.e., which is what a munach tells us, that is the function of a name. And here is perhaps where we're defining that concept. And I'm sorry, so we went forward to number 6. We read Hayachad already. Peleg with a revi'i. So this is going to focus us on the word and then allow us to pause at that word. The meaning of Peleg indicated partitioning, discord, and splitting between matters or people, as pointed out by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So a revi'i is a note that starts at a single point and then broadens out to other aspects. So it starts at a single point and then broadens out. Even if it might have a uniform ending, there is the concept of it broadening at some point to more than it was at the original point, at the original focus. So that is what the broad meaning of a revi'i means. So Peleg is going to be somebody who has the concept of division or partitioning related to his time. Ki with a mapach. So this is something that looks at what we said before, but is going to focus it to a point that is going to go forward. Because, number 8, that name was applied to him because of its meaning. It meant to announce an event during his presence that would have major repercussions, as was the case with Noach, as expressed by the shape of the reading mark. Pause for a second.